If you like to talk about combat sports and you want to join the discussion, click the subscribe button below and the bell notification icon next to it and join Knucklehead Nation. What's going on, Knuckleheads? This is George with Fighters Rep, and this is our Israel Adesanya versus Robert Whittaker Preview Prediction. Live UFC 243 is going down this weekend in Australia, and we are absolutely pumped about this fight because this fight is going to feature two of the very best fighters in the whole world at 185 pounds or any other weight. These two are a pair of incredible fighters, and they're converging in Australia at the huge Marvel Stadium where you can fit more than 56,000 fans or something like that. It's going to be absolute insanity, and the gravity of this fight is incredible. You've got a guy in Robert Whittaker who was born in New Zealand and moved to Australia and now calls Australia home. You've got a guy in Israel Adesanya, born in Nigeria but raised in New Zealand. And it's going to be basically the battle for the king of New Zealand and Australia. Because, man, they're going to get behind both of these guys. You know, people are going to get behind both of these guys for whatever reason. So as we do with all our preview predictions, let's get in to the tail of the tape. Let's talk about some statistics before we get into the fight, because I think it's always important to talk numbers. You can't cheat numbers. Numbers never lie. So let's talk numbers, and then we'll go into hypotheticals and everything else and what each guy needs to do to win. Before we move on into the discussion about who I think is going to win this thing. Before I do that, be sure to click the subscribe button below. And join the weekly conversation. Actually, we do at least 2 videos a week. Every Thursday at 9 p.m. we have one of these preview predictions for the upcoming fight. And every Saturday night after the fights, we basically do a reaction to the fights when we're not airing our own fights. So let's go ahead and get started. Robert Whittaker versus Israel Adesanya. Israel Adesanya, 30 years of age. Robert Whittaker, 28 years of age. Not a huge difference there. I think where that is going to come into play, if at all, is just the experience. Age really is not going to matter too much, but the experience is going to matter here more. I think Robert Whittaker has a lot of experience in MMA, probably more than Izzy. But in combat sports, Izzy was the man in kickboxing for a while. I think what we need to look at here, though, is activity more than anything. Robert Whittaker has been pretty inactive since he's been hurt, and Israel has been active. So, back to basically the age thing, though, I don't think it's going to matter too much in this fight. These guys are both close to their prime. I don't think either one of these guys has actually reached their prime because they're still young, but that's a pretty amazing thing to say because both of these guys are just so fantastic. Let's go on to record now. Robert Whittaker's 20-4. Israel Adesanya is 17-0. Of course, this is an MMA record. People forget the fact that I believe Israel Adesanya probably lost his last 2 kickboxing bouts before jumping in to MMA, if I'm not wrong about that. So it's not like the guy's never lost in competition. And yes, I am correct. His kickboxing record, he's actually taken 3, 4, 5 losses in kickboxing. And it looks like his last 2 losses were to Jason Wilness, who's definitely a solid fighter at Glory 37 in Los Angeles, and Alex Pereira, who's an absolute beast, actually KO'd Israel Adesanya in 2017. So let's please not act like this guy's never lost. And he's lost twice to Alex Pereira. The first time by decision, the second time by knockout. So people could say he's undefeated, but he's undefeated in MMA, and then people want to always crown him as the man as far as striking goes. Obviously, he's a great striker in the MMA world, but he did get slept in his last fight in kickboxing, and he got beat 2 times in a row, and that was probably his cue to jump in to MMA. So 13 knockout wins for Adesanya in his 17 fights, 9 for Robert Whittaker. Adesanya with the higher knockout percentage, but Robert Whittaker has 5 submission wins, 6 decision wins. Izzy has no submission wins, 4 decision wins. The height, I think the height's going to be a pretty big deal in this fight. Usually I'm not a huge proponent of height, but I think the reach and the height advantage Israel Adesanya is going to have in this fight is going to be major. It's going to be a major factor. We have a 6 foot flat Robert Whittaker going up against a 6'4" super rangy guy. Very, very rangy guy in Israel Adesanya with an 80-inch reach. That's just absolutely nuts, man. Versus a 73.5-inch reach. Basically, Whittaker's going to have to really, really watch out for Israel Adesanya's striking in this fight. And I think if Izzy keeps this thing on the outside, it's going to be an absolute nightmare for Robert Whittaker. The stances, obviously Robert Whittaker's an orthodox fighter. Israel Adesanya can switch. And, you know, those are the major basically physical attributes we're going to be looking at here. I think, obviously, Israel Adesanya has the advantage as far as length and his physique, but I think Robert Whittaker is a very strong and fast and athletic guy. I think he's got incredible heart. I think both of these guys have incredible heart. And I think that this fight means a lot. And it means a lot for both of these guys because of where it's happening. There's a lot at stake. There's a lot of pride at stake. They both kind of want to be the man in New Zealand. They want to be able to say, I'm the king of New Zealand. I'm the king of Australia. I'm the man down here. I'm the man in the 185-pound division. There's a lot at stake. Israel's talking a lot, which indicates to me that he's very, very nervous about this fight. Not a bad nervous, but a good nervous, and trying to build up his confidence, which is already through the roof. I think Robert Whittaker is extremely respectful and quiet, which I think is his version of trying to build up confidence, and his confidence is probably already through the roof. One of the major factors for me, besides the huge height and reach advantage of Israel Adesanya, is the fact that Adesanya has been much more active. That being said, both of these guys are, coming off in their last performances wars, absolute wars. What did it take out of them, if anything? Do these guys still have the same sort of tenacity, the same ability that they had in their last fight? Because those kind of fights will take a lot out of you. I mean, that Robert Whittaker-Yoel Romero fight was absolutely brutal. There are people that will never come back the same from a fight like that. And the same exact thing can be said of the Israel Adesanya fight versus Kelvin Gastelum. I'm actually excited to see how each guy looks, or interested rather to see how each guy looks in his comeback, because they've been hurt. They've been hurt so badly in their last fights. They went through such a vicious war that, I'm interested to see if they even come back as the same fighter they were before. And that's how serious those fights were, and this is something that I'm taking into consideration as a longtime boxing fan, just a longtime fan of combat sports. I've seen so many times guys get into wars like that and just return and never be the same. So I'm really interested to see how they're going to look. And in fact, even though you can give the advantage to Israel Adesanya for being more active more recently, since Robert Whittaker hasn't fought in a very long time. Even though you can give Israel Adesanya the activity advantage, the fact that Robert Whittaker has had that time to rest from an absolutely brutal fight against Yoel Romero may be an advantage here. I mean, there are a lot of things that we need to take into consideration with making this prediction. And it's very interesting. It's very interesting, the timing of this thing. Because, they're both coming off wars, and you would expect a guy that's more active to be in better shape and in better condition and less rusty. But did it take too much out of him? We're going to have to wait and see on Saturday night what really goes down. Now, the keys to victory for me, I think Robert Whittaker is going to have to get in on the inside. If he can do some work on the ground versus Israel Adesanya, I think that's going to benefit him. But definitely he's going to have to get in on the inside. He's going to have to be very, very elusive. He's going to have to be very fast against a very tall and rangy Israel Adesanya. He's going to have to negate his striking somehow. And the fight, obviously, is going to start on the feet. And Robert Whittaker's a good striker. He's a really good striker, but it's going to be a very tough fight for him, fighting a guy with a 6.5 reach advantage that's 4 inches taller than him. Because, when you think about it, besides the fact that Robert Whittaker is going to have to be 6.5 inches closer just to match Israel Adesanya's strikes, he's going to have to reach up another 4 inches just to reach his face. So, I mean, this is going to be a massive reach advantage for Israel Adesanya. He's going to have to take, Robert Whittaker is going to have to take some of the blueprint that Kelvin Gastelum laid out in his successful fight against Israel Adesanya, or, semi-successful. He didn't get the W, but he gave him the fight of his life. He's going to have to take some pages out of Kelvin Gastelum's playbook, and I do think Whittaker's capable of doing that. Another thing that Whittaker's going to have to do is, I think he's going to have that chin and have that heart, man. I see this fight potentially coming down to heart again. And we all know that Adesanya and Whittaker can go all the way, and it's almost a scary thing because I don't see either guy quitting if it gets to that space, that dark space. So we'll see what happens there. But I do think Whittaker's going to have to get in on the inside. He's going to probably have to throw a lot of hooks to negate the straight, sharp punches of Israel Adesanya. He's going to have to be quick on his feet and elusive. As far as Israel Adesanya goes, he's going to have to be rangy. He's going to have to be long. I think if he can do that, he can make an easy fight of this. But I don't think he makes an easy fight of this. I think Whittaker is athletic enough to bounce in and out. He looks like he's got a bit of a karate background. He's quick on his feet. I think he's going to be bouncing in and out and tagging Israel Adesanya. I think this is going to be an absolute barn burner, you guys. I think this is going to be a very close fight. As far as my prediction goes, this is a very tight fight. This is the reason that the UFC has become so powerful so quick relative to other combat sports, especially boxing. That's why it's already comparable to boxing, which has been around for so long. Because you've got two guys here that are the best of the best taking on each other. Is something you don't really see in boxing. And it's going to be a fantastic fight. I don't know who's going to win, I think it's a 50-50 fight. I think things that I take into consideration when coming to my conclusion or my prediction are, first off, Whittaker's the champ. Adesanya is the interim champ, but I think when you're the real champ, it adds confidence. I also think Whittaker at MMA definitely has fought the better competition. I think those fights with Yoel Romero were an incredible experience for Whittaker. I think they've shown the amount of heart that he has. I think they've shown his ability to persevere. The same goes for Israel Adesanya in his fight against Kelvin Gastelum, but if I'm being honest, I can't really compare Yoel Romero to Kelvin Gastelum. It's almost like they're in different weight classes. Yoel Romero is such a powerful, athletic, strong guy. Not to say Kelvin Gastelum isn't, but we're talking Olympic level, potentially, PED'd up, destroyer in Yoel Romero. We've never seen anything like him as far as the physical specimen in the octagon. I mean, he's one of the elite as far as being a physical specimen. And for Robert Whittaker to survive that twice and to beat him twice, although the second time was a bit controversial, but to beat him twice in such an exciting fashion, I think that was just a bit more impressive than what Israel Adesanya was able to do against Kelvin Gastelum, who basically chose to go for a striking match against Israel Adesanya and gave him hell. I do think this fight is going to be mostly striking, although I do think if Robert Whittaker's smart, maybe he can take Adesanya down for a while or grapple with him and slow him down a bit, tire him out. I think game plan wise, that would probably be a very smart thing to do. But, he has shown that he can be hit by Kelvin Gastelum. At the end of the day, I just think, even though he's been a bit less active, that Robert Whittaker is just going to be too much for Israel Adesanya at this time. Now I can see Israel Adesanya winning this fight. I definitely can see it. I think it's a 50-50 fight. But the fact that Robert Whittaker beat Yoel Romero twice, I just feel like he's got more on his resume than Israel Adesanya. So, that's what I got to say about that, Knuckleheads. About to head on, pop open the chat room, see what you guys are talking about now in a second. Before I do that, click the subscribe button below. In the link in the description, you can get your Fighters Rep gear. Anything you buy from us or donate to the super chat or in the links below, it's going to get reinvested right back into the promotion. Also, we're an Amazon associate now, so if you click the Amazon link for hand wraps, Everlast hand wraps, in the link in the description, if you buy anything from Amazon after clicking that link, or if you buy those hand wraps or whatever, but if you buy anything after clicking that link, we get a commission and it costs you nothing. And I do that and obviously funnel the majority of those proceeds back into Fighters Rep and building what we believe is the best kickboxing promotion in the world. So I'm going to move on to the chat now and see what you guys are talking about. Oh, one moment. There we are. So Matt Padilla, thank you so much for joining the chat, brother. Really appreciated. Matt is saying, got robbed in the Glory title fight against Wilness. Pereira just became the first champ in Glory the other weekend. I mean, yes, I agree with you. I agree with you on the Wilness thing, and obviously Pereira is an absolute beast. But, Pereira laid him out, and he lost 2 fights in a row, and he went to MMA. Now, did he go to MMA because he lost 2 fights in a row in kickboxing and he said to heck with this? Or did he go to MMA because he figured there's more money? Whatever it is, he lost his last 2 fights in his wheelhouse, which is kickboxing. And his last fight, he lost it in devastating fashion. I mean, what Pereira did to him was a pretty brutal knockout. So, has he improved since then? Perhaps. And obviously it doesn't matter because this is MMA now. But, this is not a guy who's never tasted defeat. This is a guy who's been beaten multiple times. And people need to keep that in mind. He's not unbeatable. He's been beaten. And also people need to keep in mind that his opposition, when it's compared to Robert Whittaker's at this point in MMA, I don't think it's as good yet. And so that's the reason I got to go with I got to give Robert Whittaker the slight advantage here and go with the prediction for Robert Whittaker. And I'll say this, I think Robert Whittaker probably wins a decision. I think this fight goes to decision. I think this fight's going to be brutal. It's possible it gets stopped if Whittaker's, a real dog in there, or if Adesanya is. But I see these guys having just too much heart. I see this being an incredible fight. There's just so much on the line. And I think Robert Whittaker gets the decision. Ivan Calderon, thank you so much for joining, my brother. Appreciate everything you do for us, my man. He says, I would say he's just confident and is just trying to get in Robert's head. And he's referring to Israel Adesanya. I mean, he does seem to be trying to get in Robert's head. Maybe it's working. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it's a bad thing to piss off Robert Whittaker. Maybe he's putting a lot of pressure on himself with all that talk. He's talking a lot, and I think some of the talk is a bit nonsense, if I'm being honest with you. Some of it I'm okay with. Some of it I think is a bit tasteless and silly. Like, him claiming the whole claiming New Zealand thing. I thought it was a bit tasteless. I think Robert Whittaker's been a bit more of a martial artist, if you will, and a bit more respectful throughout this one. But, this is what Izzy's doing to sell the fight, and I can't knock him for it. That being said, I don't think the fight needs to be sold too much. I think this is going to be a fantastic fight. Ivan Calderon then says, I feel as if the Dan Hooker versus Al Iaquinta fight is being looked over. No way, my man. Not for me, it's not. Maybe by other people. Maybe. But, man, I feel like that fight is going to be a barn burner as well. I'm excited to see who wins that fight. I think that fight's going to be awesome. I think that is going to be a stand-up fight. I think Hooker has the advantage, obviously, in the stand-up game. But Iaquinta's a very tough guy. I also think if it goes to the ground, Iaquinta has the advantage. So we'll see what happens there. And Ivan Calderon saying that's a great fight, though. I agree, man. That's going to be a fantastic fight. So that's all I got for you guys right now. I really appreciate you guys tuning in. Definitely tune in again Saturday immediately after the fight. And we'll discuss it right here, open forum. Tell me what you guys think. Until then, Knuckleheads, I'll see you guys soon. Be sure again to subscribe to the channel. We'll talk soon. Click the link below for your official Fighters Rep merchandise and join Knucklehead Nation.